Samuel, thank you so much for your time here. It's really lovely to meet you, and I'm very excited to talk about this film with you because it has such a unique concept. It's a ghost story told mainly from the perspective of two characters played by two actors, or sorry, three characters played by two actors.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, could you speak to where this idea came from and how you developed the story?
Yeah. Yeah, so I had an image in my head after I made my first film, which was a coffin in the center of the room, two people on either side, both mourning for the person inside, but knowing nothing about one another. And that sounds really specific, which it is. But I sort of always start from a visual place. And then, I started unpacking like who those characters might be, what their story might be. And I just found myself continuously connected to ideas of like the maternal and the absence of the maternal. And then that naturally led me toward a nursery rhyme and the idea of nursery rhyme, something that is passed from parent to child,
Mm.
something that is maternal in nature and caring in nature, but are actually cautionary tales that are used to lull someone into sleep. So that all of that together just naturally led me toward genre and sort of ghosts and using a ghost story almost as like a Trojan horse to tell this larger thematic story that I wanted to explore. And uh, it changed as the process went on. And I think like one of my favorite things about screenwriting and filmmaking in general is that it's often a process of stripping it back and stripping it back. And by the time we arrived at, having the wonderful Vicky Krieps and Dacre Montgomery on board, it what was really exciting and challenging at the same time about this film was that there was no VFX element or prosthetics to create this ghost character. It was purely their bodies. And, despite their differences in age or gender or background, they would be sharing this third role together and having to create that in tandem.
Yeah, I love that you said that because that really stood out in the sense that the possession is conveyed very much through energy and
Yeah.
essence of these characters as
Yes.
opposed to costumes or big hair and makeup changes. So that really it creates more of a challenge in a sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It was really interesting. Like I think to begin with, the when Vicky and Dacre came together and we were, beginning to rehearse and kind of create this third character, you always start from a place of like the top note, like
Yeah.
is it mimicry? Is it mirroring? Is it uh and all of that just felt more caricature than anything else. It wasn't interesting and it wasn't truthful to the two of them as artists, but also the screenplay, which is, quite grounded in a lot of ways and very raw and quite poetic. And I think we got about we only got about 3 days into what was meant to be a 1 week rehearsal, and we had struck on exactly what you just said, which was like an essence and an intensity and an energy, and it was really palpable in the room. So all three of us just went, okay, stop, 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 stop. Let's leave it for on set. And then on set, it was really exciting to watch that continue to develop and the two of them kind of feed off each other and take things from one another. And Dacre, I remember in one of his first scenes as the ghost character, he has really beautiful eyes naturally, but he also has like a lot of control over his eyes. So he would try not to blink as the character, and then Vicky would take that on as well and like create this, and it all just added to this sense of like the absence of their core characters, Jack and Jill, and the presence of someone else.
Absolutely. And that presence can be felt even without actually seeing Elizabeth
Yeah.
on screen and even through the house itself because she was an architect and it's sort of like a labyrinth of
Mm.
her in a sense her character, her mind that that these other characters Jack and Jill are navigating through. And I was wondering about the location and the house that you filmed in. Was that a real house? And what were some of the questions that you asked yourself about what the space had to convey?
Yeah. Yeah, no. So it's pretty much, I would say it's like 95% real. Um, it's a real location on top of a hill, overlooking a lake. Uh, and it's as remote and isolated as it looks in the film. It took us a long time to find it,
Mm,
and yeah, what you said is really true about sort of my intentions and what I was looking for and the specificity of that location.
mhm.
Is because our version of possession in this film and our version of the ghostly character in this film is is raw, and it's Vicky's body and Dacre's body and just their pure sort of unfiltered performance.
Right.
I had to use every other tool in my director toolkit to uh, introduce this character to the audience, to flesh her out, to give you an idea of who she was and what her life was like, or what her what she meant to people, or the effect she had on people. And a way of doing that was um, the specificity of this house that she had designed, the use of materials,
Mm.
the way in which sound traveled through the house. And one of my favorite moments on set was I think it was the first or second day that we've been shooting, and Dacre and Vicky were standing inside the sort of central room in the house, and it has this amazing architectural high ceiling that's wooden and concrete.
Mm.
And the two of them just naturally fell into um, speaking as if they were in a church,
Mm.
because the architecture of a church sort of makes you speak in whispers and in reverence.
Yeah.
And they naturally fell into it. And it was so interesting to me because it felt like it was in honor of her and of her design and of her as her absence. And we just stuck with that the whole film. So it's that kind of beautiful process where finding the right location and making the design aspects work then filters into performance, which then creates a really interesting performance tone on screen.
Yeah, and it's interesting how even the location of New Zealand itself, it's I personally have never been, but I imagine one of the most beautiful places on
Yeah.
the planet, which can also be isolating as we see in the film with these very vast landscapes. Did that kind
Yeah.
of lend itself into the kind of overall tone and atmosphere that you were originally going for?
Yeah, yeah. I think it sort of just dialed everything to 11 in a lot of ways. Um, so I'm from New Zealand, but my first feature I made in Australia, because I moved over here to go to film school and all of that. And I I think I truly I was very familiar with the landscape. I grew up about an hour and a half from where we shoot. But I think I really underestimated just how much of an effect the landscape in New Zealand has on the filmmakers who make work there.
Mm.
There's like a real strand of in New Zealand they would call it like cinema of the unease, and a sort of gothic strand that exists through generation after generation of New Zealand filmmakers. And having now had the experience of making a film back at home,
Mm.
it's you can't help but let the landscape infect your film because it is so dwarfing. I mean, I'm yet to go to another country that's like New Zealand in the scale. You know, it's like completely flat, and then the next minute you are being dwarfed by a giant mountain, and it's there's something also quite fantastical and isolating. You know, you're on a tiny island on the far side of the world,
Mm.
and the color palette in the film it's really really severe and strict, but it's completely honest to what it was, which is you know the life gets sucked out of New Zealand in the dead of winter, and it's just impossible not to let it kind of influence your work.
Yeah, I mean, just the location, everything about the location just seeps through this film
Yeah,
and makes it the tensity all the more palpable. I wanted to ask also about some New Zealand talent in the film,
yeah,
Sarah Pierce,
yes,
because I remembered her from Heavenly Creatures, and she
yes.
gave such an incredible performance in that film. What was it like working with her and getting her on board? Because I feel like she makes such a strong impression in this film with such little scenes or little time.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you asked. I'm a massive fan of Sarah. So, Heavenly Creatures was shot in my hometown, Christchurch, where and it's based on a true story, which also had happened in Christchurch, and it is probably my earliest childhood memory of sort of learning that films get made in New Zealand,
Mm.
and Peter Jackson's early work and obviously what he went on to has been hugely influential on me. And he's a legend in New Zealand and around the world, rightly. And but that film specifically, Heavenly Creatures, I have just loved and loved and loved, and it's meant something different to me as I've gotten older. But I've always had that kind of like family and hometown connection to it. And when we started writing Went Up the Hill, and I was writing this character called Helen, I knew from like the first comma of writing through the first space of writing that this had to be Sarah Piers. And when she came on board, I couldn't believe it. Like that's someone who's sort of in a foundational film for me, and now I have the opportunity to work with her. But she's an absolute legend and deeply generous, and truly has this wonderful respect and approach to the screenplay itself. She really cares about the writing, and she really cares about the original intentions of the text. And it was truly. And I was just with her in New Zealand at New Zealand Film Festival, and it still kind of blows my mind that she was in my film.
Yeah, yeah. And touching on the influence of Heavenly Creatures and such, it kind of
Yeah.
segues into my last question here as we reach our wrap here.
Yeah.
Did you have film inspirations for this particular film? And generally speaking, who are some of your inspirations in cinema?
Oh, thank you. I love that question. Yeah, so I did. So typically in the writing process, I really prefer to shield myself from watching a lot of films because, especially anything that feels in the maybe in the same tonal space, I try and avoid that just to try and stay as close as I can to like the original spark and the original thing that's I'm chasing in my imagination. But then as we move through to like approaching the practical side of making, I definitely start embracing more and more references. And, when you're in the development process on a screenplay, you're getting feedback all the time. And people are always saying, oh, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. So I kind of like let myself ingest all of that. But, undoubtedly, it's a particular period in Bergman's career around persona. He makes about 3 or 4 films in that section where Hour of the Wolf is one of them as well, where it feels like he's sort of embracing genre or sort of stepping into genre and really toying with it. And persona is, it's been a reference for countless films and directors, but I think it's for a reason, because it doesn't matter how much time passes, people still struggle to fit it into a box and really define what it is. And that's something that I really ran with on Went Up the Hill, was sort of refusing to place it in any specific kind of genre box. I wanted it to be free. And then in terms of filmmakers that inspire me, the reason I went to film school and the reason I wanted to become a filmmaker was the New Queer Cinema movement. So Todd Haynes is one of my favorite directors, and Gus Van Sant and Greg Araki. And it's probably Greg Araki's early work that is the reason I was like, I would love to try this.
Well, it's amazing. I love what you said about the genre point too, because this is a film that very much exudes different genres and different kind of forms of imagination that come through. It can be supernatural, it can be, dramatic. It's really fascinating blend of tone.
Yeah. I love that. I think the directors that I'm the most drawn to and who I really admire are the ones who find like the tension that they're seeking is like the one between different genres.
Yes.
And I find that interesting. And like, it messes with audience expectations as well, which I think is always fun.
Yeah. And it certainly lends to the lasting impression of this film. Samuel, thank you so much for your time. It's such a pleasure to chat with you, and
it was a pleasure to chat to you too.
Yeah,
thank you so
I hope we get
much.
to chat again soon.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Congratulations on the film again, and
Thank you.
all the best to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.